Hi everyone and welcome to Canadian Redneck Channel. My name's Dave and today we have a gearbox from a New Holland hay rake. It's a model 256 Rollabar rake is what they're officially called, and the gearbox here is in pretty bad shape. Gears are kind of ground up, chewed up, probably the bearings aren't good either, and you can tell that it's been a while since it's seen any grease, so I think we know what the problem, why that happened. So we gotta first thing pull it apart, find out what all we need. I'm pretty sure it's going to need at least one gear, if not both, and a bunch of bearings and seals. So like I said, we'll start pulling things apart and see what we need. I'll get the camera moved around so you can see what we're doing, and we'll get started. To start with, we got to get the input shaft out of the gearbox. This is the drive shaft that goes down to the axle on the ground. These are a ground drive rake, and it's got just a press-in cap here, much like a cap on a wheel hub on a trailer or hay wagon or something like that nature. So we got a nice sharp pointed chisel and try to get in behind that and convince it to come out. Alright, yeah, try the screwdriver, see if we can get that started first. There we go. If at first you don't succeed, use a bigger hammer. Smaller punch. There we go. Yeah. From the rust that's coming out of there, you can tell it hasn't seen grease in a while. We got the cap and the key out. There's a nut here that holds the shaft in, so we get that, and then we should be able to drive that out. Yep. Okay, so we just use a punch. There's a center hole in the shaft here from where it was machined, so that makes a good spot to put the punch so we don't damage any threads or anything. Oh yeah, coming right out. And again, you can see it's pretty rusty. There's been no sign of grease or anything in there for a while. So now, this, there we go. The gear, you can see the teeth are all rounded off and it's been sliding by, so we'll need to replace this gear. Yeah, that bearing is shot. Definitely need that. We'll need this seal. On the other end, this hub is what drives the basket on the rake, and I see this nut has already been loosened up. So we should. Oh yeah, that comes right off. There we go. coupler in there that puts the rake in and out of gear. It locks in to lock the gear to the shaft so that it turns the basket and then it flips back. It's fine, nothing wrong with it. Okay, we have to take this out of the way in order to get the shaft out of there. With a pair of 7/16 wrenches, we can get that fork and lever out of the way. Or, yeah. And you can see on this one the bearing is falling apart on it also, and these are worn quite well to a point. I think we probably should get that gear also. It's all chattered up, the teeth, the face of the teeth is all chipped and rusted, and I think we're better off we get that gear also. So we have one seal, one bearing and race here. Then a bearing and race. A bearing and race on the outside of that shaft, a bearing and race on the inside of the shaft, a bearing and race here, and another bearing around here that we better get. So it's probably going to be a few days before those pieces come. I'm going to put that back in there the way it was so I know which way it goes when the time comes, or hopefully. There we go. So we may as well continue taking the bearings and races out of the box, so that way when the new parts come in we're ready to start putting back together. So it's a long punch right through and we should be able to knock that. There's another bearing that's just all jammed up. A little bit of grease and oil is the cheapest part you'll ever buy. So, should be able to catch a lip of that race. There we go. Pop the race out. Turn around and do the same thing here. And this will be a race and a bearing and a seal coming out this time. Yeah, right. We're gonna. Okay. Cage. An edge of that, which is tricky. So it's a good way to smack the crap out of your hands. And that's the race. It's all pitted and gouged. If you put a new bearing on that, it would chew it up in no time. Let's see if we can. There we are. Get this one out. So I've got an old pry bar that I broke the handle off of, and I think that'll work for a punch in this case. Perfect. So in a few days, when we get the shafts and bearings and gears and so on, we will be able to start putting this together. In the meantime, I'll clean this up a little bit, get it ready to start putting things back together. So we'll see you in a few days when the parts come. We received our new bearings and parts for our steering box, so we're ready to start putting it back together. Start with the bearing race. And we have a proper size driver here for it. You don't have to use seal drivers and stuff like this. I have them, so I'm going to use them. But the right size socket or a wooden dowel even that fits around the full size of the race will do the trick. Appears to be bottomed out, and then we'll put our bearing in place, and then we put our seals. And on the seals, the open side goes in towards the bearing. These seals are coming 2 in a package, and they're quite thin, and the space in here, it appears like we put both seals in the in each side, in each place. Make sure that is down all the way. Yep. Like that's all the way. Okay, and that one appears like there's only room for the one seal. And there's one more of the same bearings goes down inside the box to stabilize the shaft that runs the basket in the rake. So that has to press on. Alright, I'm going to put that in my press and press the bearing on the shaft. I'll be right back. Okay, we have our bearing on our shaft. And it slides in through carefully. Oh. Right. It's not really a press fit on the bearing, it's just a snug fit. I'll use this brass drift to just carefully get that started into the bearing. Yep, it's going. There we go. Still a little ways to go. Kind of being difficult. Make sure that the bearing isn't catching on it. There it goes. Yeah, that's got it. Yeah. And our drive hub goes on. There. Oh, yeah. There we go. Alright, now we tighten this nut up. We have to be careful when we tighten this nut not to over tighten it, because that clamps those bearings into the races, and you don't want to put too much pressure on them because that can chip the rollers and destroy the bearing in a short time. So you want it tight enough that the bearings aren't flopping around, but you don't want to be putting too much pressure on those bearings. So you need to, as soon as you feel the nut start snugging up, just keep checking it to make sure you're not over tightening on the bearings. There we go. That feels nice and free. And yeah, definitely no wiggle in there. Okay. And that is actually just about lined up for putting the key through. There we go. I would say that looks pretty good. There we are. Now, this bearing goes in. And this is another situation where this nut is clamping the two bearings together, so you don't want to put too much pressure on this. You want it to make sure that it's still rolling freely. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Just got to bring it to the so the key will line up. There we are. There. And our little cap taps on here. So the gasket on the gear case got damaged when it was taken apart, so we're going to cut one, and there you go, just about like that. We'll put that there. And about the simplest way to cut a gasket is with a hammer. Just carefully tap around the edge of the gear case, and it will cut the extra paper away. Now I'll take a knife and cut out a bit of the extra inside because it has to be able to clear this gear back here. So, perfect, just like they made it in the factory. Yeah, that'll do. So now the next thing we're going to mark where the holes are. And these are just 1/4-inch bolts. This hole punch should do it. These New Holland rakes are a great rake, but they have one fatal flaw, and that is on the input shaft over here. This drive shaft wraps up with hay, and it takes out that seal, which lets the oil drain out of the gearbox and all the bearings and stuff run dry, and you saw what happens when there's no grease in these. So the solution straight from New Holland is you put in 1 tube grease out of a grease gun first, and that'll be thick enough that'll pack in around the bearings and kind of seal things up, and then you put in gear oil on top of it, and that lightens up the grease, mixes with the grease so it gets out into all the bearings well and stuff like that, but yet should stay thick enough it won't just drool out when grass takes out the seal. So I'm going to try, I've got the air bleed screw here loosened up. I'm going to take it out. I just put a new tube in here, and hopefully, yep, there we go. Okay, that's looking like that's getting about enough. Yeah. Okay. Let's see if we can get some of that stuff to go climb down inside. Yeah. also add about a quart of gear oil. Alright. So now we put our gasket and end cap on. Alright, let's get this fella on here. Get her sealed up and don't lose the grease. Hope you enjoyed our video on rebuilding the gearbox. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave that in the comment section down below. Please give us a like and subscribe to the channel. Please share this with your friends. And as always, have a great day.